Welcome along to the Met Office 10-day trend, where the short message is, get used to it. It's a very wet Wednesday for some parts of the UK, and well, there's plenty more rain in the forecast. The next 10 days takes us to the end of the month, and yes, further spells of wet and windy weather are expected throughout the rest of October. And in particular at the weekend, it could get really quite windy as another area of low pressure moves in. Next week, well, there's something of an influence coming up from the tropics. More on that in a moment. First of all, let's take a look at the big picture and the pressure pattern. At the moment, we're being influenced by this area of low pressure. Came up from the south. It's Storm Barbara, as named by the Spanish. The remnants of that weather system bringing a very wet spell of weather before that scoots away. We're then left with a drying up day on Thursday, but still there will be some wet weather across the northeast. But for most Thursdays, a bit drier as the brief ridge of high pressure moves in before another low arrives. This one up towards Iceland, but its weather front swings across the country on Friday, bringing a spell of rain before the next system comes in on Saturday. And this one's pretty lively, a more intense area of low pressure, more isobars on the chart, so that will be bringing some stronger winds at the weekend. Let's take a look at the three-dimensional picture and add the jet stream to that sequence. And you can see at the moment, it's coming up from the south, an arm of the jet stream, which is why that low pressure that was named by the Spanish Met Service, Storm Barbara, has come up from Spain and France. That's then clearing away. There's not a lot going on in the Atlantic initially with the jet stream, but it does get its act together. Now, that first low that comes across Iceland and brings us some wet and windy weather on Friday isn't that close to the jet. But the next one that comes in on Saturday, well, that really takes a ride on that worm of a jet stream as it powers across the Atlantic. And it's that energized jet stream that really energizes then that area of low pressure. And it's that extra bit of energy that just adds a bit of uncertainty about the weekend forecast and the exact position and intensity of that low as it comes close to the UK. But it does look as if we'll see a spell of wet and windy weather this weekend. Just going to pull out a little bit and show you another area of low pressure out in the more western parts of the Atlantic off the east coast of Canada. More on that area of low pressure in a moment. But yes, let's focus in on the weekend, because as that low rides in, as I say, some uncertainty because a lot's got to come together. It will be interacting with that powerful jet. So some uncertainty about the exact trajectory, intensity of that low. But that cold front swings across the country during Saturday into Sunday. Quite a lot of isobars on the chart, and that weather front swings through, bringing some rain, and that'll be followed by a mixture of sunshine and showers. So yes, it could be quite a windy weekend. Certainly that's the main theme. It should be a bit milder than last weekend, but it will be windy with a spell of rain, with some sunshine between the showers, particularly so on Sunday. What happens beyond that? Well, the low pressure that arrives over the weekend is still sticking around through Sunday, bringing us the showers. The isobars tend to open up a little bit into next week through Monday, so perhaps not quite as windy on Monday. And there's, again, a little ridge in the isobars, a bump there, which could turn things a bit drier for a time. But out in the Atlantic, there is a couple of areas of low pressure. They're just starting to dumbbell around each other, potentially forming a very large area of low pressure in the mid-Atlantic, which will dominate next week's weather. Now, that could bring some pretty lively weather. At the moment, it looks like sticking out in the mid-Atlantic, certainly initially. There's a fair bit of uncertainty because of where some of that area of low pressure originated from. I'm going to rewind the clock now and go back in time, back to the here and now, and show you where some of that area of low pressure develops from. Yes, we can trace it back down to the tropics and what is currently Hurricane Epsilon. Now, it's a hurricane at the moment. At the time of recording, it will track its way northwards, and as is the usual case with these storms, it will become ex-tropical sometime over the weekend. It will no longer be a hurricane, but it could still bring some very moist and energetic air in towards the jet stream that could influence our weather next week. So that always adds a bit of uncertainty to the forecast. What happens to Hurricane Epsilon? Now, for more information about hurricanes and how they can influence our weather, there's a really great video that my colleague Aidan McGivern made on our YouTube video explaining how these ex-tropical storms can affect UK weather. So I'd urge you to check that out. But the main theme is that next week Epsilon will be close to the UK and so will be influencing our weather somehow. Whether it's a direct spell of wet and windy weather or whether it brings us some warmth, The main thing is at the moment that extra bit of energy will increase the uncertainty. Why does it increase uncertainty? Well, a good analogy is, think of a spinning top. If I put a spinning top on a table and give it a little bit of a tweak, and as soon as it's spinning, stop, freeze frame, and say, where will that spinning top finish? Draw a circle where it's likely to finish. Then if I do the same experiment again, but give it a much bigger spin, again I have to draw a circle encompassing all areas where it could finish. Then that circle, when I give it a much bigger spin, is going to be much larger. And that's the increased uncertainty. That's why these bits of energy, these tropical storms, when they get into our systems, add confusion to the computer models. So yeah, some uncertainty about next week, but however Epsilon influences, the main suggestion is that the Atlantic will dominate our weather next week. Let me show you this chart now. This is the European model run, where we run the model several times. And I've shown these kind of graphs before, but usually we're focusing on whether it'll be high pressure or low pressure that dominates our weather. This one is indicating whether it's more westerly or easterly winds that will dominate our weather. Blue being westerly, and red being easterly. Not a lot of red on that chart. Now we start green because that's where we are today, and we've got southerly winds, so they're neither easterly nor westerly. But after Wednesday it becomes very blue. A lot of blue on the chart, as I say, for the rest of the month and beyond. So the main flow of our weather throughout next week will be dominated from the Atlantic, from westerly winds, and when that happens, the Atlantic is obviously a large body of water. It's usually going to bring us wet and at times windy weather. So that's the main theme through next week. More of the same. It won't rain all the time, of course. There will be dry and brighter spells in between, but much of the rest of October, expect further spells of wet and windy weather. There are weather warnings in force, so make sure you stay up to date day to day with the details. This is just the 10-day trend, looking at what we're looking at into next week. But for the day-to-day details, make sure you're following the Met Office on social media, and I urge you to also subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out that video that Aidan made.